The streets of Iran are burning with anger, grief, and defiance as the country enters one of the most dangerous moments in its modern history. Over 500 protesters have been killed by the Islamic regime in its brutal crackdown, and over 10,000 people have been arrested. What began as protests over soaring inflation and economic collapse has now transformed into a nationwide uprising that openly challenges the very foundation of the Islamic Republic. And as blood continues to spill across Iranian cities, the crisis has spilled far beyond Iran's borders, reaching the White House, the Pentagon, and America's closest allies. In Washington, US President Donald Trump says Iran's leaders are feeling the pressure. Speaking to reporters, Trump revealed that senior figures from Tehran had reached out directly to him, seeking negotiations after he warned of possible US military action. According to Trump, a meeting is now being discussed, but he made it clear that diplomacy may not come fast enough. The United States, he said, could act before any talks take place. Trump described the rapidly deteriorating situation inside Iran, saying people were being killed who aren't supposed to be killed. He questioned whether Iran's rulers were true leaders at all, suggesting they maintain control through violence rather than legitimacy. The US military, he said, is watching closely, reviewing what he called very strong options, with updates coming in hourly.
Set the willingness from Iran to aid diplomatically with you or perhaps negotiate on nuclear.
With Iran?
Yeah, do you think they want to aid diplomatically?
They do. They called yesterday. Iran called to negotiate. Yesterday, the leaders of Iran called. They want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States. Iran wants to negotiate, yes. We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up, but we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting. But a meeting is being set up. Iran called. They want to negotiate.
When pressed on whether Iran had crossed a red line or what a US response might look like, Trump refused to provide details. He dismissed questions about targets, timing, and tactics, saying he would not telegraph American military plans. But his warnings are unmistakable. Trump added, if Iran or its allies retaliate against the United States, the response would be devastating, at levels Iran has never been hit before. Trump pointed to past US actions as proof that his threats should be taken seriously, referencing the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, the defeat of ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and the rollback of Iran's nuclear ambitions. In his words, Iran knows exactly what the United States is capable of. Behind these warnings lies a grim reality on the ground in Iran. Over the past 2 weeks, protests have erupted in cities across the country: Tehran, Mashhad, Ilam, Rasht, Kermanshah, Bushehr, and beyond. Thousands of demonstrators have flooded the streets, no longer chanting solely about economic hardship, but demanding the end of the clerical rule and the removal of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Human rights groups and journalists working in exile have reported a brutal crackdown. According to the US-based human rights activist news agency, at least 500 protesters have been killed nationwide, along with dozens of security personnel. More than 10,600 people have been detained, including children. The mounting visual evidence paints a horrifying picture. Footage from a morgue near Tehran shows roughly 180 body bags laid out in rows, many in the open air. Cries of anguish echo in the background as families search for loved ones. Other hospital workers told reporters they were overwhelmed, describing young people arriving with gunshot wounds to the head and chest, many dying before they could be treated. In Rasht alone, 70 bodies were reportedly brought to a single hospital in one night. In Tehran, a health worker said dozens died within hours, shot directly by security forces. He said it's like a war zone. The streets are full of blood. They're taking away bodies in trucks. Verified videos show security forces firing live rounds at crowds in multiple regions. The Iranian government has responded with brutal force and with silence. Internet access has been almost completely shut down. Most connections are limited to a tightly controlled domestic intranet. Experts say the only remaining window to the outside world may be satellite services like Starlink, though users risk being tracked. Iranian authorities insist the unrest is foreign-driven. President Masoud Pezeshkian has blamed the United States and Israel, accusing them of training operatives, importing terrorists, burning mosques and setting bazaars on fire. The Attorney General has labelled protesters enemies of God, an offence punishable by death. Supreme Leader Khamenei has dismissed demonstrators as vandals trying to please Donald Trump.
Last night in Tehran, in several areas, there were nothing but a bunch of destructive individuals. They came for the building that belongs to their very own country. They destroyed it. For example, imagine they demolished a specific building or a wall just to make the American president happy. Because he made an utterly irrelevant statement saying that if the Iranian government were to act in a certain manner, he would then come and unequivocally take your side. He meant he would align himself with these rioters and individuals who are profoundly detrimental to the nation's well-being. They're just trying to make themselves happy, if he can even manage his own country.
The state has declared 3 days of mourning, not for the protesters, but for what it calls martyrs killed in a national battle against the United States and Israel, a reference to the security personnel who have died. State television has aired images of regime loyalists marching in support of the government, while officials have called for nationwide pro-regime rallies. From exile, Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's last Shah, addressed protesters directly, praising their courage and claiming the regime faces a shortage of loyal security forces.
Amiralai, bravo to all of you who on Thursday night took to the streets throughout the country. I am proud of all of you.
I call upon the field commanders to make every effort to ensure that the mobilized crowds can connect with each other so that the total number of people becomes even larger.
I know that you will never abandon the streets. Be absolutely certain that victory will be yours.
The unrest has also spread beyond Iran's borders. In London, protesters were filmed removing Iran's flag from its embassy balcony, prompting Tehran to summon the UK ambassador in protest. Inside the US government, Trump is now weighing how far to go. According to American officials, the president has been briefed on a range of options. These include targeted military strikes aimed at Iran's security services, cyber attacks on military and regime infrastructure, expanded sanctions on energy and banking sectors, and efforts to restore internet access for protesters. Trump has even suggested calling Elon Musk to discuss expanding Starlink coverage, echoing steps that were taken during the 2022 protests. Officials stress that no option involves US troops on the ground. Still, there is concern inside the administration that military action could backfire, rallying Iranians around the regime or triggering retaliation across the region. Iran has already issued its warning. Parliamentary Speaker Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf said, if the US intervenes militarily, American bases, ships and even Israel would become legitimate targets. Trump's response was blunt. Any such move would be met with overwhelming force.
And with these explicit confessions you have made regarding your intention for military aggression against Iran within the framework of conditional defense, we do not consider ourselves limited to merely reacting after an action has occurred, but rather based on objective and tangible signs of an impending threat, we will take decisive action. It was essential for me to tell you and all your allies in this region that you must not make any miscalculations, because regret will ultimately bring you no benefit.
Israel is watching closely as well. The Israeli military says it's monitoring developments and maintaining defensive readiness. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has convened security consultations, while U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has spoken with Israeli leaders about the crisis. All of this unfolds against a backdrop of deep, long-standing pressure on Iran's ruling system. Decades of sanctions, economic mismanagement and corruption have hollowed out Iran's middle class. Snapback nuclear sanctions remain in place. Regional allies like Hamas and Hezbollah have been weakened by Israeli action. Iran's nuclear program has suffered heavy damage from US strikes. And in late 2024, Tehran lost a key ally when Syria's Bashar al-Assad was ousted. Analysts say the convergence of domestic rebellions and external pressure has created a moment that may be unsustainable for the Islamic Republic. Still, Iran's security apparatus remains largely intact, cohesive and ruthless. There have been no confirmed mass defections among elite forces, which something experts say is often necessary for a regime's collapse. For now, the government is offering a mix of repression and reassurance. Mass arrests alongside promises of a better economic future, small cash handouts and calls for dialogue. Whether those gestures can calm a population demanding systemic change remains doubtful. As protests rage into their third week, Iran stands at a crossroads. The streets are filled with people who appear no longer afraid. The regime is determined to survive at almost any cost. And hovering above it all is the possibility that the United States may step in. In Trump's words, Iran is staring at freedom perhaps like never before. Whether that promise becomes reality or collapses into deeper violence may depend on decisions made far from Tehran's blood-stained streets. Amidst all this, the unmistakable message being sent out by the people of Iran, especially its brave women, sick and tired of years of brutal repression, is this: the rule of the Islamic Republic is no longer acceptable, and something has to change this time around because the people are not willing to back down.